I just want to say welcome everybody to our Empowering Learners webinar. This webinar is part of the Go Lumio series, where we are providing a best practices look into the Lumio ambassador community and how they incorporate Lumio into their teaching practices. So in this spotlight session, Lumio ambassadors will show you how they create lessons and activities focused on classroom instructional strategies. This webinar, Kinderactive, Interactive Ideas for Little Learners with Lumio, features Devin Caldwell, a kindergarten teacher from Canada. Devin will share a little more about herself in just a minute. We encourage participation with this webinar. If you have any questions, please ask those in the chat box during the presentation, and we'll either integrate them into the flow or hold off and wait until our Q&A at the very end. I'll also do my best to answer any questions in the chat about Lumio if you have them while Devin is doing her thing. We will also be sharing resources from today's webinar in the chat, so be sure to just keep an eye out on that. Also, for participating today, a certificate will be provided after you complete a brief survey at the very end, so just hold off and wait for that before you leave. So my name is Sarah Rambato. I'm an education solutions consultant with Smart Technology from Monterey, California, and I'm excited to turn things over to Devin Caldwell so we can dive into today's webinar. Devin, take it over.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to share about how I'm using Lumio in my kindergarten classroom. I will begin by sharing my screen. I'd like to begin with a disclaimer. In no way am I a Lumio expert. However, what I am is a teacher who is looking for a solution. And I used to use Smart Notebook extensively, and then our division stopped supporting Smart Notebook. So I only had access to a really old version that no longer did what I wanted it to do. I spent 3 years out of the classroom and then was coming back into kindergarten this year with a brand new interactive panel in my classroom, but still feeling like I didn't have the right tools to go along with it. So that's when I happened on Lumio at ISTE in Philadelphia last June. And I realized that Lumio could probably meet the need and really help me with what I wanted to do in my classroom. So I started off using it as a replacement for Smart Notebook to help me use my interactive panel or interactive whiteboard the way I wanted to use it. And then as I dived a little deeper into it, I soon realized that interactive whiteboard software was just the tip of the iceberg and it could do so much more. So I'm going to share some of those things with you today and hopefully give you some ideas about how you can use Lumio with younger learners. So a little bit about me. I'm so pleased to see so many people here who already know me. So this will be a little bit repetitious. I teach junior and senior kindergarten at Oak Lake Community School in Manitoba, Canada. And I became a Lumio ambassador this past summer after being so impressed with Lumio as a tool at ISTE. And I'd love to connect with you on social media during or following the presentation. You can find me on Instagram at kteducation.ca, Twitter or X at India0309. And of course, my website, Oak Lake Community School. And last of all, I am a PhD candidate as well as a classroom teacher. So I recently finished my research. I'm defending my dissertation in April. And what I studied was how teachers of young children integrate technology in their classroom practices. So I'm really hoping that I'll be able to add to the body of literature on technology integration. So let's get started on our presentation for today.
Also, real quick, everyone, I am putting Devin's Lumio lesson student link in the chat. So if you click on that and just join as a guest, you can get access to her lesson right now so you can participate in the activities.
So first of all, since I was just telling you a little bit about me, this was an activity that I did on the first day of school with my little learners. And I will just model the activity for you. It's called a super sort. It's available right in Lumio. You just click the plus to start a new lesson and choose super sort. and then you create it the way you want it. And I'll just show you my super sort for the first day of school to help kids get to know their teacher a little bit better. So it's true and not true. And a real strength of Lumio with little learners is that it has wonderful visuals. So the Bing search engine is integrated right in the tool. So all of these images I just quickly searched for and popped into Lumio, because we know that when children are pre-readers, probably images and pictures are going to work much better for them. So this was the super sort. I included some text so you could also see how the text looked. So this picture of pizza, I would say to my students, I love eating pizza. Do you think that's true or not true? And they could either complete this on their own devices, or we did it on the interactive panel because it was the first day and I didn't really know how to do that yet. So students could take turns coming up and testing to see if it was true or not true. So yes, I do love eating pizza, so it's self-checking. If I put it on true, the pizza slide just gets sucked right in. I love traveling, so that's why I put a picture of an airplane. Do you think that's true or not true? If the student dragged it to not true, it would just bounce back, and right away they'd get feedback. I have 2 sisters. That's not true. I have 3 dogs. Also not true. I love Flair pens. True. So you see how the super sorter activity works, and it's a great way for students to participate in something that is self-checking, provides immediate feedback, and they love seeing what happens if their guess is incorrect. So you'll see from the presentation that you can use the super sorter in lots of different ways. I think I've included a few more examples as well. So what we're going to talk about today are the following items: my classroom setup, how I use Lumio for rules and procedures, daily routine, literacy, numeracy, inquiry-based learning and project-based learning, what my favorite features are, and of course the Lumio library where you can access a ton of ready-made resources. So my classroom setup, I have an interactive panel. That's not necessary for using Lumio. You could use Lumio just with individual student devices, but I do have an interactive panel. This would work on a smartboard or like the more old style interactive whiteboard. I think basically anything that projects, Lumio will work well with. I have a teacher laptop, and then I have 5 iPads for student use and an Apple Pen. So when I'm showing you these different activities I've done, that's kind of the context that they've taken place in. Okay, so with rules and procedures, I spent a lot of years in resource or inclusive education. So often I do approach things with kind of like a resource teacher or learning assistant's perspective. So when we're starting kindergarten, we review our rules every morning, kind of like a social story. And that is set up in Lumio. So I'll show you that in a minute. We also have used Lumio slides to learn our classmates' names. If you don't teach young children, you may not believe this, but like often kids do not know each other's names. And you'll hear them saying like in January, like that girl over there. And you're like, that's your classmate that you've known since September. So we practice learning each other's names. Again, social stories work really well to either create or display in Lumio. And then what our morning jobs are, reviewing and doing them. So yes, I could do all of these things in a different format. Like I could do it in Google Slides, I could do it in PowerPoint, I could do it in Canva. And often that's how I was doing things. But all the files I wanted would be scattered in different places. And by integrating them into Lumio, it puts everything in one place for me and just allows them to share them with my students seamlessly. You know that if you have a busy class and you turn your back for like 15 seconds, things can get crazy really fast. So instead of me looking for files in different locations, I just have everything where I need it. And kind of just to add on to that, Lumio does integrate so many other tools. If you have existing PowerPoint lessons or activities, Google Slides, if you have things you've created in Canva, or if you have old PDFs or old smart notebook lessons, all of those things can be imported in Lumio and used there. In fact, the slides you're seeing today, a lot of them I created in Canva, then I used the Lumio widget to import them into Lumio. So it's really a beautiful thing when so many different file formats work. You're not recreating things. You're just able to use like the smart notebook lesson that you made in 2008, and you can open it up in Lumio. Okay. So these are our morning rules. that we probably reviewed every day for the first 2 months of kindergarten. And this was just a little social story that I created in Canva and then imported into Lumio. And so it just tells like the positive expectations for our behavior, because you really can't have enough reminders at the start of the year. And then the part that the students really loved was they got to practice doing a super sort. So if you are following along, you actually could just start that activity now on your own. I can also model it for you because there are visuals and you may not know like exactly what I mean by that picture. It does require some explanation sometimes. So every morning we talk about what do we want to see more of today? What do we want to see less of today? And then the students come up and they do the super sort. So being a kind friend, do we want to see more of that today or less of that today? Making a big mess and not cleaning it up or not putting our things away. Do we want to see more of that today or less of that today? Getting upset, yelling, saying unkind words. Do we want to see more of that or less of that? Being a good listener, listening when our friends and the teacher talks, more of that or less of that. So this is a super simple activity, but it's really great because it's self-checking, it's reinforcing, the students love doing it, and anything that helps them get a clearer idea of what the expectations are in kindergarten is definitely a good thing. So this is the super sorter. Again, students could, I'll just show you what my students would see. If I click this arrow, it makes a QR code, and my students could take their devices, open the camera, and just hold it up to my interactive panel and scan the QR code, and suddenly it is on their own device for them to use, which is really great. If you have like your iPhone or smartphone or an iPad sitting beside you, open up the camera, hold it over the QR code, and it will take you there, and you'll be able to do it on your own device, which is really nice. Or you can just take that share code that Sarah put in the chat, you can copy and paste it into another tab, and you can access it there. So that's something I really love, is it doesn't require a certain piece of hardware or software. It really removes a lot of the barriers in that it's web-based, so you just need a device that can access the internet. The QR code makes things so easy for teachers of young children, and you can find that just by tapping there and the arrow. And you can see from my end, all of you who are actually following along with my presentation. So that's the super sorter and a couple of ways that I use it. Okay, so another little social story that I've included in my Lumio file that we do every morning is our morning routines and our morning jobs. Sometimes kindergarten students can take a really long time to pick up the rules, routines, and expectations in this brand new environment. And even though we feel like we've said it a million times, we probably need to say it 1,000,001 times and just review it one more time. So I just find having a little story that we read every morning helps my students develop proficiency in those rules and routines a little quicker. So we just start off. When I get to school, I hang up my coat and backpack in my special cubby, and then I ask all my students, have you hung up your coat and backpack? If you haven't, get up and do it now. I take off my outdoor shoes and put on my indoor shoes. Everyone check your feet. Have you done it? If you haven't, get up and do it now. So this would be part of my morning routine that's all integrated in Lumio and that we follow every day. So I won't read it all to you because I'm sure you know what that looks like. But I find this works really, really well. And if I have students with special needs who are struggling, if I have another adult in the room to help or it's just me, I can always scan the QR code. They can go through it on their own device. And something that I've just started experimenting with is the audio feature in Lumio so that kids could actually hear it being read to them rather than have to read it themselves when they're non-readers. Okay, so morning meeting. I love to plan my morning meeting or circle time activities in advance, week by week, and then have everything ready to go. So if there's a certain link I want to have there, I can have that available. If there's like a YouTube video we're going to watch, that can be there as well. So I just feel that it really helps me plan in advance and make sure that I'm touching on all the different curricular areas that I'm targeting. So part of our morning routine is our calendar. And of course, it's way less focused on the actual calendar than it is on developing like early literacy and numeracy skills. I just included this to show you. If you visit the Lumio library, there are so many great pre-made calendar files that you can find in there. And then you can just add them to your Lumio library and edit them to meet your needs. So this is one that I just grabbed out of the Lumio library, and then I've customized it this year to meet our needs. Every day we graph the weather, counting our way to 100 days. And of course, in Manitoba, we never get to 100 days because our students just attend half time. And then these are my different circle time activities. I do a different thing every day, depending on when the students are here. Monday is Movement Monday, Take Two Tuesday, Would You Rather Wednesday, Thankful Thursday, and Fun Friday. So depending on the activities I choose for the week, I can have those set up in Lumio if it requires a visual or a video or any of those things, and it's just there for me. So I thought I would include an example of what Movement Monday might look like. So we've got our title slide, and I'm a yoga teacher, as some of you know. So actually, I don't usually use Cosmic Kids Yoga. Usually I just lead the movement myself. But if you're someone who wanted to incorporate more yoga in your classroom, Cosmic Kids Yoga on YouTube is a really great resource. So I wanted to show what it looks like when you play a video in Lumio. YouTube advertisements are like a real problem for teachers, and we don't want to subscribe to YouTube Premium to get rid of those ads, of course. So if you include your video on a Lumio slide, it takes the ads out, and it's just there for you outside of the YouTube environment. And it's a much safer and easier way to use YouTube in your classroom. So this is a YouTube video, but all the students see is just the title kind of thumbnail, and you hit play and the video plays. Let's say you have students who are maybe done their work early. Maybe you want to give a student an opportunity to practice some regulation. Maybe you just click this little button, get the QR code, take the device, help the student scan the QR code, and they could practice like that breathing exercise on their own device. Or that student and a couple of friends could follow along with the Cosmic Kids Yoga video. So it gives you nice options for like whole class or else small group or individual, depending on what your needs are. So I really recommend including your different videos right in your Lumio slide. It works really nice. Okay, we're going to do this today. So this is a mental health check-in. And in our school, we do Wellness Wednesday, where we do a once a week mental health check-in for the whole school, including the teachers and all the students. So I have mine set up in Lumio, and I'm going to click start, and I would like you to check in with me today. So I'm going to press start for class. If you want to do it on your device, here's the QR code. You can scan it with your device and join that way. And there are 3 questions. And I'll just wait till 100% of people have answered. We're at 93%. And I can also look at the questions. So how are you feeling today? 100% of my students have answered, or my webinar participants. 8 of you are feeling really great. 2 of you are feeling kind of maybe sad, worried, or anxious. Okay. Did you have a good sleep last night? 9 people had a good sleep last night. 1 person did not. So you see how I've included visuals. These are right out of the Lumio like integration with Bing for visuals. So it's super easy just to pop images in. And then did you have breakfast at home today? 7 of you did, 3 of you didn't. So this is the information that we collect from our whole student population and staff population every Wednesday. And doing it in Lumio can work really, really well. Okay, thanks for trying that with me. Does anyone have any questions or comments about that? I shared a lot of information really quickly. So if anyone wants to pop into the chat and ask a question or make a comment.
I will top up on some of the things that you've talked about, Devin. I am just putting YouTube links in the chat whenever she goes over an activity that she's using. Just a quick 2-minute YouTube video about how to actually do that in Lumio. And so hopefully you can save those links and use those resources later.
And it is very easy to do all of the activities. Like once you have your Lumio account, you just click the plus and it gives you all the options for what you want to create. And the super sorter and the shout it out, I think they come up right away. And then other things, you just click on game-based activities. And so many of the things I do are under the game-based activity. Okay, so I'm going to reset this slide now. And that means I can use it again the next week. And it's ready to go. Okay, so that's how I use Lumio for my rules, procedures, classroom routines. I'm checking in on students' mental health every week. And now I'm going to share a few ways that I use Lumio to strengthen literacy in my classroom. So one of my absolute favorite things to do is using the Lumio Shout It Out template. And we do Shout It Out scavenger hunts. And what the Shout It Out template is for is you just provide the prompt for what you want students to share about or collaborate on. And then, of course, I just share the QR code with my students. They scan with an iPad and it takes them to the activity. So I will show you what those Shout It Out scavenger hunts look like. I also use a game-based activity in Lumio called Memory Match, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just like playing memory, where students are matching 2 cards. The reason why doing it in Lumio is so appealing is it's self-checking. So right away, students get feedback on whether or not they chose the 2 correct cards. Students can play it by themselves or with a partner. So if you have a student who's done early, they can play a memory match game by themselves. So that can work really well for those students. The other thing is how often have you put out multiple decks of like a memory game in your classroom and then you find 3 cards on the floor and you have no idea where those cards came from? Doing it with a technology device definitely kind of takes that headache away. And then lastly, I'm going to show you how I took a paper-based activity and turned it into a tech-based activity. So we'll spend a few moments just looking at how I've used Lumio to strengthen literacy skills. Okay, so what does a completed Shout It Out activity look like? It just looks like an online bulletin board. What it reminds me of a lot is Padlet. Padlet is a tool that I've used a lot, and Shout It Out in Lumio, I would say, is somewhat similar to it, but with some different functions. So what we often do for our Shout It Out scavenger hunt is we may meet a certain letter in Letterland that day. So you can see we met the letter P that day. And then we will walk around the classroom, walk around the school with our iPad, and we take pictures of everything we see that begins with the letter P. And then they all populate this kind of digital bulletin board slide. And then when we are finished, we come back to the room. You can see it tells me what student took the picture. And they're just all these little tiny tiles. As you click on a picture, it makes it big so the whole class can see it. So you can see that my student took a picture of a pig because pig begins with P. And then I would just click this X and it would disappear again. And we could go through all the different pictures that their classmates took. And we could decide, do all those things begin with P? So they absolutely love these Shout It Out scavenger hunts for looking at beginning sounds. You also could use it for ending sounds and so many other things. Shapes, numbers of things. It's really quite endless. I'm going to show you an example of what we did with 2-syllable words. So if you're an early years teacher, you will definitely be familiar with Jack Hartman. So I created a little Lumio learning experience where I integrated a Jack Hartman video on syllables. So we were able to view that as a whole class. However, students could have viewed it on their own device too if they'd scanned the QR code. So we watched the Jack Hartman video. And of course, we've been practicing syllables blocks up until this point. And then we did a shout it out where we search for things that begin with search for items that have 2 syllables in the names of them. So what I'm going to do is I want you to look around your environment, and I'm sure you have a device beside you. So I invite you to scan the QR code with your device and then take a picture of something around you that is 2 syllables. So I've got my Stanley cup right here. So I could take a picture of that because Stanley has 2 syllables in it. So let's just take a moment, and I'd like everyone to join me in this if you're able to. Okay, I see 13 students are connected. And I'm already seeing some posts. I'm starting to populate the Shout It Out activity. And I spent about 5 minutes modeling how to do this. I just took my classroom iPad and I airplayed it to my interactive panel so that we could look at it all together and know what buttons we press and what everything means. And my students had no problem doing this independently. And I let them roam around the school, an iPad between a group of 2 or 3. And they love this activity. It incorporates movement, which is always a good thing, gets them out of the classroom, and makes them see that what they're learning about with literacy concepts aren't just things on a piece of paper or in a book, but they actually exist all around it. Okay, so let's just take a look. So you can see these are all little tiny pictures and we can't really see them. So if we click on them, so I see a remote. So 2 syllables, great job. Click the X to make it go away. I see an iPad or maybe a tablet. My Stanley cup. Briefcase. So anyway, I'm sure you understand the concept. I just thought it would be fun for us to do this activity together so you could see how simple it is for young children to do and how meaningful it can be, especially when you take the time to debrief the activity after and look at all of the students' responses. You'll notice that you can move these around on the screen. So sometimes we also sort the responses. So for example, when we were talking about things that begin with the letter P, we sometimes do some sorting with the different things they photograph. Is it living or non-living? Is it a shape? Is it this? Is it that? So since you can move them around on the screen, it offers some opportunity for sorting and classification, which can be a nice extension as well. Okay, I'm going to reset this activity. Thank you to everyone for participating. Okay, and here is memory match. And this is matching beginning sounds with actual alphabet letters. And with memory match, I'll just show you. Once I press start, it gives me some options, 1 player or 2 players. So the first time I introduced this activity, I have it projecting or displaying on my interactive panel. And I will stand on one side of the panel and then I'll pick maybe my special helper, they stand on the other side, and we will play it together and model for the class how it works. So in that case, we would choose 2 players. However, if you have a situation where you just have 1 student who needs an activity to do, maybe you're using this, as part of Daily 5 or literacy centers, and you want students to do it individually, they have the 1 player option to choose from as well. So if I click on 1 player, it brings up all these cards. It says match letters and pictures. And so you can see butterfly. I made all of these cards myself. And again, I just quickly searched the images right within Lumio. I didn't source images from any outside source. then you're not worrying about the images, worrying about the issue of copyright with your images, which is nice. So we've got a butterfly. I'm looking for a bee. Oh my goodness, I got it the first time. So you see how exciting it is. It shows the students that there's a match. What's nice is if you're doing the 2-player game, it keeps score for them and shows them like who goes next. If you get a match, you get to go again. So this is what the memory match looks like. It's right there in the game-based activities. Super easy to set up. Also, if you go into the Lumio library, you can search for pre-made memory match activities if you don't have the time to do this yourself. Again, students can join on their own just by you projecting the QR code, or if you shared the hellosmart.com and the class ID. But for little people, the QR code is so good. Okay, I will reset this. Okay, and lastly, this is not earth-shattering or amazing or anything like that. But I started using these rainbow letter arcs where, did I include both? Yes. They're available in uppercase or lowercase, and they came in PDFs. So I printed them out, and I had them on metal trays in my classroom with magnetic letters. And how it works is you can have them match only the letters that you've introduced. You can have all 26 letters. You can have the letters of their name. You can also get them so that some of the letters are missing. You can have them only match some of the vowels. There's really countless ways to do this. They can do this with a partner. They can do it individually. You could even do it timed if you wanted to introduce like some kind of element to that. Anyway, so we were doing the paper version of it, and we still do the paper version of it. It's not that we don't, but with magnetic letters, like I had my perfectly sorted bags of 26 letters, and then like 2 letters end up on the floor and you have no idea what bag they go back into. So I thought it would be fun if I could turn this into a digital activity for my students to do. So I mentioned earlier that Lumio lets you import all kinds of different file formats. So all I did was import my PDF file that I wanted to use. It went right into Lumio. And then I just used the text feature to make my own magnetic letters. And then students are able to drag them to whatever letter and match them. And if we were doing it together, we could like rotate them so that they actually lined up perfectly, but that really wasn't what I was as worried about. So I just really simply and easily took a successful paper-based activity and turned it into a digital activity. So students could complete this as a group on our interactive panel as the center, or again, they could scan the QR code and they could do this on an iPad or a tablet of some sort. And that's just how it looks with lowercase. So the rainbow letter arcs are a really great activity, and I really like the option of turning them into a digital activity. And it took me probably less than 5 minutes to do that. So those are 3 suggestions I have for you with literacy. There are so many other ways to use Lumio to support literacy. And I hope just by seeing some of like the ready-made game-based templates in action that it will inspire you to come up with some different ways of your own to use Lumio in your classroom. Okay, next we're going to talk about mathematics and 3 activities to try. And the first one I'm going to show you is using a different Lumio game-based activity, and that's the match 'em up. Then we're going to do a mystery number using the flip out from Lumio as well. And then lastly, we're going to do a memory match for dot patterns and fingers. So let's take a look at those. Okay, it'd be really great if you guys wanted to give this a try on your own. What you're doing is you are dragging 2 cards together to match them, and then it will pair them for you. I can model that. So here we go. We've got all of the numerals, and then we have all the 10 frames. And what we're going to do is we are going to drag them together. So I'm going to drag the 3, and we get a match, and it puts them together on a tile. So give it a try on your own device. Here's the QR code if you'd like to do it. Or, of course, you can use the hellosmart.com and enter the class ID, and I know that the link is in the chat. So give it a try. As 10 people are connected. And yes, Lumio can be used on Chromebooks. I haven't used it on Chromebooks myself, but I know that it can be. Okay, so I can see 12 people are active in the activity. I can view your progress by clicking on this tab. So I can see one person hasn't started yet, 8 people are in progress, 3 people are complete. So usually in early years, I'm just walking around, seeing what point students are at. But this is really nice if you were doing this remotely too. So that's how the match 'em up activity works. And I'm sure you see all the different possibilities for how you might use this. Okay, I'm going to go on to my next slide. So sorry to stop you if you're really enjoying it. Okay, so this is Flip Out, and I love using this for a mystery number or a mystery letter, or to activate prior knowledge and to pique students' interest prior to a learning activity. So let me just show you. You can complete it on your own. With young learners, I would always do this whole group because we'd want to talk about what each prompt meant. So I'm going to click Start. Okay, so we have 6 clues. And I would just invite different students to come up and flip each clue over. A thing I could add to this that would be really nice would be a number line, because we're trying to find a mystery number. Okay, so I am bigger than 2. So then if we had a number line, or using like a 10 frame or like a 100 chart, we would be marking off on that what that clue meant. So we would probably X off the numbers 1 and 2. I'm bigger than 5. So then that would rule out some more numbers. I'd be asking my students what some guesses were. Some of you might be this old. So in kindergarten at this time of year, some students are turning this number. I'm smaller than 7. So again, we would be ruling out more numbers, asking students what the possibilities are, and seeing if anyone has a guess yet. I am an even number. Maybe you've done some teaching around on even numbers already. Maybe this is a really good opportunity to explain what that means. I am equal to 3 plus 3. And then can you solve what the mystery number is? So again, we just have used this with our number of the day, but there's so many different ways you can use these cards that flip over. One kind of caveat with this template, as far as I understand it, and like I said, I'm not an expert, I don't think you can put images. You have to use text on the card. So that's why I would recommend doing this as a whole class activity if you're working with young children who are just very early readers. Okay. And then we have a memory match here. You've already seen memory match, so I won't spend much time on this. But this is where we're matching numerals and fingers. So you can see, so I've got the 2 player mode activated, so it actually says your turn to the student on that side, which is really helpful. So we've got 1 finger, and I'm looking for, oh, no match. And then it says your turn for the other student. So that works really nicely. Sometimes solves some debates over who's going. So that's the memory match, and I've just programmed that for numerals and finger arrangements. Okay. So those are just 3 ways I've used Lumio to support numeracy in my classroom practice. And I'm sure you can think of a whole bunch of other ways as well. Okay, lastly, I'm a huge proponent of inquiry-based and project-based learning. That's something I'm really, really passionate about doing in my classroom. And technology, having the right technology tools to support that is really, really key. And again, back in the day when I used Smart Notebook, my Smart Notebook files were always the container that held the project. So I would start with 1 slide, and then as we did more research, more learning, I would just add on slides, and it would just be one big file. It just provided like such a great container for organizing our learning and also documenting our learning and having that record that we could refer to. The advantage of Lumio is it also provides a space to collaborate. So with the different templates that I've shown you today, like the shout it out, the polls, it gives students a space to collaborate as well, depending on how you use it. So right now, we are learning about pizza, which I know is like not the most amazing inquiry-based learning example, But my students are really into pizza right now. And we have a pizza restaurant in our classroom and we play pizza. Tomorrow we're making our own pizza. And I'm actually going to Naples in 3-4 weeks, which is the birthplace of pizza. So I'm promising that I'll be able to like report back on is Neapolitan pizza as amazing as everyone says. So I just thought I'd show you what our learning around pizza looks like and how I have it set up in Lumio. Okay. So activating our prior knowledge, generating questions. What do we wonder? And I mean, there is a lot of teaching around this process with little ones. So what do you know about pizza? So of course, we started off by talking to the person beside us. We read books about pizza and we keep adding to what do we know about pizza? And then we just revisit this slide and we enter that text onto this page. As you can see, we've kind of done some sorting with our ideas. And if I were writing this on chart paper, like that would be fine, but it wouldn't be as easy for me to manipulate the ideas into different categories. So right here on the left, you can see we have all the information about pizza ingredients and toppings. You can see in the middle, we have some information about temperature you eat pizza and cooking it. And then on the right, we've of course drawn from our math curriculum, Shape and Space, and we're using our pizza investigation to also take a deeper look at shapes. So a piece of pizza is a triangle. Pizzas can be a rectangle. Then I had kids telling me like, you make a pizza like a star or a Christmas tree, and we make a pizza like a heart tomorrow. And I was like, I think it's going to be like a big enough test of my abilities to make pizza for my class without getting into the fancy shapes. So this is like documenting what we know and what we're learning. And I just like the ability to save it, have it all in one place, and then be able to manipulate it. This is the part that's hard. Kids never seem to be able to ask you a question when you want them to ask you a question. Instead, they always want to tell you statements. So we've done lots of teaching around like, what do we wonder? What do we want to find out? So these are the questions right now. What is your favorite kind of pizza? Does pizza taste better in Italy? How long does it take to cook pizza? How does yeast work? What is yeast? So those are the things that are guiding our investigation right now. And again, we can revisit this every day to help focus our learning. We also can answer those things on the What We Know page. Okay, as I mentioned, I love being able to embed YouTube videos right in my Lumio slide to prevent any problems with, unwanted YouTube ads and kids just being out there on the internet. So again, I've got this secret history of pizza video that we could watch as a whole class on my interactive panel. Or what I can do is I actually had like 4 different videos, and then I let students watch them in groups with their little notebooks and on an iPad. So they'd watch the video and then they would draw pictures about what they learned and they would come back and share with the whole group. So that was just a really nice way to safely and efficiently get a YouTube video to a child. And that was with the QR code. Okay, so since we're making pizza tomorrow, this is something we were working on the other day. And it was all with visuals from like the Bing image search that's a part of Lumio. What ingredients do we need to make pizza? So you can see flour, salt, water, yeast, and oil. And then what tools do we need to make pizza tomorrow? And we were able to find visuals for those as well. So my students really aren't old enough to read or write a recipe, but being able to represent their ideas and document them using images and then sometimes, invented spelling or certainly first and last letters can be really effective. So that's what my pizza inquiry looks like right now, and just how I'm using the features of Lumio as a container to keep our learning in one place and to document. Okay, so we've got like 1 minute left. So I created this to find out what kind of pizza we should make. So I would love to know what your favorite kind of pizza is. What kind of pizza should we make? So if you want the QR code, here it is. Please scan it and get started and just let me know. So 90% of you have answered. Let's see here. Oh my goodness, it's a tie between cheese, pepperoni, and ham and pineapple. I did not even put my favorite on there, which is bacon and mushroom, because every time I mention mushrooms, my kindergarten kids are like, ew, gross. So no bacon and mushroom on that. Okay, well, thank you for completing that survey. Oh, look, ham and pineapple pulled ahead in the end. And review, reset the activity. And that means it's just ready for me to use another time. Okay, so to wrap up, my favorite Lumio features. As I've been highlighting all the way through, I love how I can easily integrate visuals into all the materials I make. So whether I'm a resource teacher creating visuals or developing programming for students, it's really easy to integrate visuals in Lumio. Or if you like to create things in Canva, there's the Canva plugin that lets you just move things from Canva to Lumio. And that's a really nice feature too. I love that so many of the Lumio activities are self-checking, interactive, and collaborative. Little people need that immediate feedback. We all need that immediate feedback. And it allows my students to have a measure of independence because I know they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, even if I'm not hovering over their shoulder. No need for apps or software. And this solved a real problem for me. At the start of the year, I got new iPads for my kindergarten classroom, which was really exciting. And the tech department configured them a new and different way. And what that meant was I was not able to download any apps myself. And so I had to send in tech requests to get the apps I wanted. Then there was some problem with them pushing the apps to me. And this went on for 3 months where I could not get the apps and tools I wanted. I would have really struggled to even use my iPads at all if it hadn't been for Lumio. All I needed was a camera and my iPads to be connected to the internet. And my students could use the iPads to scan the QR code and complete any activity I created independent of an app because it was all web-based. And that made such a difference for me and really saved me this fall in my efforts to integrate technology. So I really love that it can certainly get you around a lot of hurdles. I think you've seen today how you can use Lumio full class on an interactive panel. You can use it in small groups with a shared device, or you can also use it on an individual basis too. And then the audio recording feature that I mentioned earlier. I'm not an expert in Lumio, as I said, and I'm still discovering new things about it all the time. And I know the next direction I'm going to be going in is definitely taking advantage of the ability to include more audio in the material I create for my students. Oops. Okay, that kind of jumped around. Okay, I also encourage you to check out the Lumio library because that's a wonderful resource. So I'm leaving you with a challenge. Lumio is really great to do monthly challenges, and if you share it on social media, you win a prize. And usually the prizes are really good. I've won Sephora gift certificates, which I love, but you get to choose your gift certificate. I don't know if they still do that, but it's a great prize. So here's the challenge that I'm leaving for you at the conclusion of this webinar. Try out any of these templates in Lumio. The memory match, the super sorter, the shout it out, flip out, or the match 'em up. Any of those that I showed today. And then just take a picture and share it on social media. If you want, you could take the share link and share that so other teachers could use it. But you could just snap a picture and share it on social media and use the hashtag #GoLumio. Cheryl, I'll hand it back over to you if there's things you'd like to add.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Devin. I know all of us on the webinar really got a lot of value out of some of the things that you were showing us in Lumio. So thank you for taking the time to do that for us. For those of you that are on, I went ahead and put the PD certificate link in the chat. It is a little bit.ly link. So get that, copy and paste that into a web browser, and then complete the survey, and then it'll give you a certificate. If you have questions, just feel free to stay on and let me know. And then additionally, if you want to sign up for webinars, future webinars, that link is also in the chat. And then lastly, Devin is one of our Smart Ambassadors. We encourage all Lumio users to become Smart or Lumio ambassadors so that they can share their knowledge as well, just as Devin did today. So I'm putting that application in the chat. If you feel like you want to share some things that you've done in Lumio with other educators, you can do that through that application. There's some fun exclusive perks in doing that. You can get sneak peeks We'll take you to some events possibly, and you're just basically sharing your knowledge, just as Devin did today.
Thanks everyone for joining me today and for all your comments and your willingness to try out the activities with me.
Thanks everyone. Don't forget to fill out the survey and get your PD certificate.